Tyler Brandt was used to the world watching him. His name had been in headlines for years, celebrated as a self-made billionaire who had built one of the most successful tech empires in the world. Yet, as quickly as he had risen, his fall had been just as swift. Investors pulled out. The market crashed. The companies he had once controlled were sold off, and Tyler disappeared from the spotlight. Now, here he was, standing at a checkout counter in a small town in Georgia, a grocery store with chipped floors and worn-out signs. Tyler wasn't used to being looked at like this, by strangers who had no idea who he was, and, even worse, by a group of people who judged him based on nothing but his appearance. His designer clothes, polished shoes, and his watch, probably, worth more than most people's cars, were all for nothing when the card reader blinked a glaring red declined. A wave of embarrassment hit him. He fumbled with his wallet, swiping his card again, and again. No luck. The murmurs from the people behind him grew louder. Guess even billionaires have their bad days, a voice muttered from behind. A woman chuckled, her tone dripping with condescension. What's the point of all that money if you can't pay for a loaf of bread? A teenager snickered. Maybe his crypto wallet's down. You know, for that influencer look? The laughter wasn't malicious, but it stung. It stung more than Tyler cared to admit. These people had no idea who he was. They assumed he was just another rich man pretending to be poor for the sake of some viral trend. But Tyler wasn't pretending. His bank account was empty. His once untouchable empire had crumbled. And now, here he stood, as helpless as anyone who had ever struggled in life. And then a small voice broke through the noise. "You can take my money, mister." Tyler turned slowly, his heart skipping a beat. The voice came from a little girl standing just beside him, holding out a small bag of change. She was no taller than his waist. Her braided hair, scuffed shoes, and the worn-out clothes she wore told a story of modesty, of someone who had far less than him. Yet here she was, offering him what little she had. Tyler's mouth went dry. He couldn't understand it. Why was she doing this? The crowd shifted awkwardly. There was a long silence as people processed what was happening. Tyler blinked, looking down at the small bundle of crumpled bills in the girl's hands. This wasn't just charity. This was something else. This was something he had never expected from someone like her. Anna was a black girl, no more than 8 or 9 years old. But her gesture of kindness transcended race, wealth, and status. The world that had once been at his feet, where people would have bent over backward to help him, now seemed foreign. Here in this small grocery store, a little girl from a modest background was showing him what true humanity looked like. "No, I can't take that," Tyler said softly, still reeling from the moment. "That's yours. You keep it, Anna." But Anna, without hesitation, pressed the bag into his hands. Her voice was clear and full of purpose as she said, "I want to help you. You need it right now. And my mom always says that if someone's standing alone, you stand next to them. That's what good people do." Tyler was struck. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. Not in his business world, not in the circles he had traveled in. His wealth, his power, had always been enough to keep people at a distance, to control the narrative. But this little girl, Anna, had reached out to him without any ulterior motive. She was offering help purely because she cared. Tyler's emotions swelled. He crouched down to her level, his voice a little shaky as he asked, "What's your name?" "Anna," she said, her smile broad and unshaken by the crowd's judgment. "Well, Anna," Tyler said, his voice cracking slightly, "that's the kindest thing anyone's done for me in a very long time." From behind them, a voice chimed in, an older man with a deep chuckle. "Kid's got more class than him," he muttered under his breath, not entirely unkind but tinged with a sense of superiority. Tyler forced a smile, his eyes glassy. He didn't care about the man's comment. Something inside him had shifted. Something bigger than the shame he had been feeling. The cashier, a young woman with faded tattoos on her forearms, looked at Tyler, then back at the crowd. "Do you want me to cancel the order, sir?" she asked gently. Tyler hesitated, looking at the girl who had just saved him from humiliation. "No," he said, shaking his head. I think I'll pay with something better. He turned to Anna's mother, who had just arrived on the scene. Would it be okay if I thanked you both properly? Tyler asked, his voice sincere. Maybe we could grab lunch sometime? Anna's mother, Mara, studied him for a long moment, as though unsure what to make of this man who had once had everything, only to be helped by her young daughter now. We don't usually do things like that, Mara said carefully. But I suppose Mavis's diner's just down the street. Tyler nodded. I'll meet you there. As they walked toward the diner, Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed in him. He had been a man who measured his success in numbers, in headlines, in accolades. Yet, as he followed Anna and Mara, he realized that true success wasn't about what you had or what you could buy. It was about connection. At the diner, as they sat down to a modest meal, Tyler learned more about Mara and Anna. He learned that Mara, a nurse, had lost her husband 5 years ago in a car accident. She had raised Anna on her own, working long shifts to make ends meet. They didn't have much, but they made do. I'm used to doing things on my own, Mara said, her voice quiet but steady. Anna's a lot like her father, always wants to help people even when we don't have much. Tyler nodded. She reminded me of something I'd forgotten, he said softly. That it's okay to let people help you. Over the next few days, Tyler spent more time in Dawsonville. He helped with community projects, pitched in at the local community center, and began to see the world through different eyes. What surprised him most wasn't the work he was doing, it was the people. In the past, he had associated success with power, control, and money. But in Dawsonville, the most successful people were those who had built trust, who worked together and who showed up for each other. Tyler's ego, once so tightly bound to his success, started to unravel. One afternoon, as he painted over a mural at the local playground, Tyler reflected on the lesson that Anna had taught him. He was no longer the billionaire who lived for headlines. He was someone who was learning to live for the quiet moments, the ones where people helped each other, where compassion was valued over wealth, where equality wasn't just a concept, but a practice. As the new mural went up, the words "Be the Helper" were painted with bright colors, standing as a testament to the lessons Tyler had learned from a young black girl named Anna. And the mural wasn't just about a lesson, it was about a community that had come together, regardless of race, wealth, or background, to create something beautiful. By the end of his time in Dawsonville, Tyler had found what he had been searching for all along: connection, humility, and a deeper understanding of equality. It wasn't just about helping others. It was about seeing others for who they truly were, without judgment, without prejudice. And Anna, the young black girl who had helped him when no one else had shown him that no matter how much you have or how little you have, everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. Tyler's journey of redemption wasn't about regaining his wealth or his empire. It was about finding his place in a community that didn't value him for his money or his name, but for his actions, his heart, and his willingness to help. And in that small town, Tyler realized that his true legacy would be built not in boardrooms or headlines, but in the quiet moments of kindness, the small acts of service, and the everyday humanity shared by people, regardless of who they were or where they came from. In the end, Tyler had learned that kindness and equality were the greatest forms of wealth, and that even the smallest gestures, like Anna's, could change the world.